Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AMT Tech Trends podcast, where we discuss the latest manufacturing technology research and news. Today's episode is sponsored by IMTS Plus. I am the Senior Director of Technology, Benjamin Moses, and I'm here with
Stephen Lamarca, AMT's Technology Analyst. And we're produced by FormAlloy.
Hi, Ramia.
Hi, Tech Friends.
Awesome. Steve, I was traveling a little bit. I was in Atlanta.
Nice.
I visited the Mazak Tech Center down there, which is not in Atlanta. It's in Swanee.
How many places do they have?
They have 8, I think.
Makes sense.
And the reason where I was down there is where I was hosting a joint technology summit. So we're bringing in other associations, other groups that are technology focused. So AMT has their technology issues committee. We met with AGMA's emerging technology team and NTMA's tech team. You guys can look up the acronyms yourself. And the key thing is we want to bring together these groups and talk about relevant technologies and barriers to technologies. So we had a really great group of speakers that came in. So we talked about they talked about cybersecurity, more related to the business operation. I'm looking for more cybersecurity talk on the operational side. So if you guys see anything out there about that, just let me know. We can always go back to Yonda Nice and Lockheed. They're doing a lot.
And Mike Muckin.
I think we need to follow up with them at some point. But this is
because Yan's OT.
Yeah.
Mike's IT.
That's right.
And you need both.
And this was relevant for the group because of where that group sits in the organization. A lot of them are C-suites or executives, and there's a lot of attacks. And that group is being mimicked a lot and as an access point. So in terms of protecting the business, that's one aspect for cybersecurity we talked about. We also talked about accessible CT scanning.
Heck yeah.
So it was
Lumafield
came in.
Andrew Parrott, my boy.
And
what's up?
It was really interesting to look at two things. One, the cost of getting to a traditional CT scanner is massive, right? It's very high because of their size and the accuracy that those things produce. They're very, very accurate machines. What they're providing is they're sacrificing some of the size and a little bit of the accuracy to get to something that you can use as a service, basically. So you can pay a certain amount, and you can go to the website and look at the prices right there, which is great. I'm always interested to see that in manufacturing.
That's a really nice thing.
They changed their business model instead of just buying equipment, so you can buy a yearly cost. And it's less than $100,000, and it gets you a base software and the hardware that they maintain. Their software is cloud-based, so we did run into actually quite a few discussions with the defense guys about cloud accessibility. They're not using any of the Defense Gov cloud stuff yet.
This must have been such a good conversation.
It was great. And, that is something that they're looking into, trying to get into the defense market, of course. But
the defense market also has those dollars for...
And to be fair, the other way around, it's a barrier across the entire defense manufacturing industry. So it's not Andrew's thing to be solved. It's a process to be solved later. And there are steps to get there because there's a lot of defense cloud solutions. So
I would imagine that if you're a small to medium job shop that is potentially about to be awarded a major government defense contract, and you're trying to grow in size, and when they have that military brass come through your facility, if they see, I'm giving them way too much credit, there is a risk potentially of them looking at like the inspection and seeing that, and if they know that this particular inspection equipment is cloud-based, they may be like, no, we're about to give you major defense dollars. You need to change providers here, and you need to do it in-house because this is top secret stuff here.
Yeah, and there's layers to that. So we don't get too much in the defense and security side of it, but there are layers, and there are cloud services that the defense is accepting. So there is a shift towards that.
That's wild. That must have been such a cool conversation to be a part of.
So both the technology and the accessibility that and the business model that they laid out was fantastic. And then we had a couple of discussions on automation. One, we did look at the automotive outlook for the next couple of years. We had a research group that does automotive forecasting, and mainly is a shift towards EV and hybrid vehicles. That's going to drive shift in manufacturing. And then the one conversation we had on automation is what shift in the automotive market is driving different automation solutions. So as we go from engines to batteries, now you're automating motors, you're automating battery development, that type of stuff. A lot more gluing solutions. So we talked about that shift in those technologies, but also we took a step back and said, what is the current state of the art in automation? So we looked at, what is vision capability, autonomous robots, their capability, and had a very meaningful discussion on automation that way too. So that was a fun meeting in Atlanta.
Yeah, I bet.
And we
sounds like it.
And we got to see. It was funny when I was working with Dave at Mazak about 2 months ago. I'm sorry, 6 months ago, and trying to plan through that. And he was a little concerned about the amount of machines that he had at that time, because at the tech center they bring in machines and then do turnkey solutions and then sell them back out. He was concerned that they didn't have machines in their time at that time. A couple of months going into it, they had a bunch of machines come in. They were very comfortable. And then when I arrived there, they had 2 machines. So it's a healthy discussion. And it was actually pretty cool because, one, they had their screw machine, their brand new screw machine. They had
the one with the Palmer base?
They had prototype number 3 there. So it wasn't running, but it was really cool to see that, re-emphasizing where they're trying to get into in the market there. But also they had a turnkey solution where they had a fairly standard lathe, large size. Yeah. But the complexity was in the work holding because they were machining aluminum propellers. So they had to hold, this 6-foot long propeller and turn down the base of it. And then they would do the profiling on another machine. So it's very interesting to see from their perspective right there. And I think a lot of companies do this, and it's worth an exploration of your preferred manufacturer of this technology of getting a turnkey solution. So someone went to them and said, can you help us machine this part? They organized the cutters, the work holding, the programming. They're doing runoffs now, and then they provide that turnkey solution to the end user. So I thought that was a interesting journey.
That's cool. Mazak. I really like Mazak. Their one machine is still in my top 3 like dream machines to have if I ever had a shop. The Integrex i100 ST, multi-spindle, multi-axis, multitasking,
multi-everything,
capable of closed-loop gear manufacturing. That sounds like an advertisement. I promise it's not.
So, Steve, taking a step back, we talked some really cool technologies. I want to talk about vices.
Oh, man.
Now, personal vices.
Right.
We can do that later, but...
Drinking and overeating, we're not talking about that. So I was lying in bed last night, scrolling through Instagram, not able to sleep, even though I know I had an early morning today. And I came across this really cool video that I've actually seen before, but I actually gave it some thought this time. And it was basically just somebody showing off their old table vise.
Sure.
I do. It looked brand new. Right. You have to look closer and realize, it's actually old that's been restored. Like you can see the brush marks on it.
Right.
And then I went to the comments to find out what vise it was because it sold me. I was like, I want this vise. How do I get this vise?
Sure.
Well, it was like made in like the 40s, 50s, or 60s. I don't remember how old it was, but I found out that this particular... Well, anyway, what was cool about... Before I mention what kind of vise it was and the brand and model, what was so attractive about this vise was it was so new and clean, or it had been restored, was the person filming spun the handle on the vise to close the jaws, and it just kept spinning until it came to a close.
Oh, that's
and
such a good
feeling. It looked so smooth and perfect, and when it just came to an abrupt stop, and it was just like... You see something like that late at night on the internet, like when your brain is shutting down and you're just like, that's like the time of the day. And when you're in a mental state and it's just like, shut up and take my money. That's when you're ready to like swipe a credit card.
That's everybody's vice, by the way.
Yeah.
Late night scrolling.
So I'm thinking about, and I go to the comments to find out what it is because I'm going to Google I'm going to Google how much they cost. Find out in the comments that it's from like, the mid 20th century.
Sure.
It's been restored, and the brand is Wilton.
Okay.
And it's a Wilton 9450 machinist swiveling table vise.
Cool.
Or they might even call it a bullet vise because like one end is shaped kind of like rounded like a bullet.
Sure.
Something that I could never get away with today. So it's definitely from the mid 20th century. This vise So I go to Google once I found it in the comments what kind it is. Not in production anymore. You can get like old ones, like rusted out ones that people need to restore, but they don't want to, on eBay for like a couple $100. I'm like, couple $100 for like a grody looking one? What is it? And then I see on like, the shopping tab of Google, it says Grainger. I'm like, okay, Grainger Industrial Supply. They have these.
Buy now.
They don't have like the same. It's not the same model number anymore. They don't make the same model, but the most equivalent one is like a 6000S series or whatever.
Cool.
I don't know exactly, but Wilton still is around. Maybe they're still made in the U.S. Wilton doesn't have a website, of course,
right.
Like all proper American manufacturers. And $2,200. It's like, okay, so like we've got a beefy workbench for our test bed.
Yeah.
That sweet workbench was made in the USA. Yep. We got it from either Grainger or MSC. It was $1,500.
Right.
It's 1/4 inch number or 8 gauge steel, which I think is around 1/4 inch.
Our entire factory is that table.
Yeah, beefy table. Our entire factory has to go on. We of course, like there was no problem. It's 3 feet by 6 feet.
Yep.
Exactly big and like as big as we could fit on the elevator.
Right,
which was the purpose. That's 75% of the cost of this vise. Less than, actually.
We need to look up some Pittsburgh vices. That's our market.
We got to see if Harbor Freight... if Harbor Freight makes a robot, too, robot arm, that'd be awesome. Because here I am complaining about a $2,200 vise, and I'm like, if I'm worried about a $2,200 vise, there's no way I'm going to get another industrial robot arm made outside of China for under $10K. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
It's going to be a challenge.
You're right. It's going to be a challenge. It will happen. We can figure it out. As long as we can do it before inflation. Maybe.
We'll come back to that. Steve, tell us about today's sponsor.
Today's sponsor, we will come back to that. Today's sponsor is IMTS Plus. The people behind the technology, the stories driving the future of manufacturing, the thought leaders and people like us, Ben and I specifically, creating the products, the opportunities, and solving the challenges of our industry. Yeah, we're not doing any of that. Explore a new digital destination designed for manufacturing technology community where you can watch, read, learn, join, and connect. Go to imts.com.
I like your podcast voice.
Or my ad read voice?
Yeah, ad read voice. So it's getting back to our robotic arm journey, which we've gone on. It's been a fantastic journey since our impetus a couple of years ago. We got that arm. It's gone to Mexico. Now we're trying to find another one. What's the deal with our journey right now? And fill me in, because it's kind of connected to the Robot Block Party that you just attended also.
So I went to the Robot Block Party, which was really fun. To put that in perspective, the Robot Block Party is now an industry event because SVR is a partner, joined with AMT now.
Yep.
But the Robot Block Party, or by itself, technically, is by no means industrial whatsoever.
Sure.
Heidenhain's there.
Okay.
Heidenhain. Heidenhain's there. So shout out to Gisbert.
So
they were there.
So you're talking about,
but that was the only industrial company there.
Okay.
They had a little table.
Yeah.
It was more like a public school, like middle school through high school, and maybe like college, book fair.
Okay.
It was really fun.
Sure.
And there was a lot of people in and out the entire day. There was free food, popsicles.
It was a fun event.
Was really cool, all of like the companies that were there,
right?
Like especially so the place where it was, the setting of this place, the building is actually a West Coast incubator.
Okay.
Tech incubator.
Sure.
And all of the companies that were started up in that incubator and came and went were all there for the Robot Block Party, and the CEOs of those companies were actually in the line serving lunch to all of the attendees. It was really cool.
That's fun.
It was a really fun, organic event, And the biggest challenge for AMT will be us keeping our hands off of it.
Sure.
Because the second we try to put any sort of structure, like corporate structure on it, it's going to ruin it.
It's a very organic community.
Yeah, it's a baby flower right now, and you just don't make sure you give it just enough water, money, and don't let it grow. So it was a really fun time. But anyway, I went there not fully understanding this.
Sure.
And thought that, oh, there's going to be some robot companies there. I'll see who I can buy a robot from.
Right.
The good news is that the TLDR of it is there was at least one company there that I'm browsing some of their products right now. Robotics. Orangewood Robotics.
Thanks, Ramia.
Thank you so much, Ramia. And yeah, I'm going to see what they have to offer. And if they can get us an industrial arm, build us an industrial arm for the right price for our organization budget,
we're on it.
Yeah, we'll be in. It'll be cool saying that it's from the U.S. too.
Yeah. Taking a step back, I was looking at the content, and we're going to cover a lot of automation and artificial intelligence in our conversation today.
Yeah, this is an automation heavy episode for sure.
Because I think our next topic that you want to bring up in this section is your chat GPT journey.
So before we move on let's go back to
let's finish that up.
Let's go with the skeletal structure of the podcast, which is the next thing we talk about after banter is the podcast the test bed updates.
Yep.
What has been done? So I wanted to get a table vise and now I'm looking for a robot. We're still in the hunt for a robot. Here I am. Here I was complaining that the last robot that we got took a little over a year to get here. Well, the current robot is taking a little over a year for me to find one. So that's not even counting shipping. I can't imagine how long it's going to take for whoever takes our money to get us one.
Got to give them our money first.
But in terms of the equipment that we have, one of my current projects has been using ChatGPT to develop a G-code program.
Yep.
And I recently wrote an article about our next MT magazine.
Yep.
The first part, it's going to be a multi-part because you don't want to spoil anything, and I'm limited to only like 600 to 800 words. I forget what. I'm sure Kathy loves that. Yeah, so I've been using ChatGPT to develop a G-code program, and in 2 iterations, or not iterations, in 2 dialogues, meaning I messaged Chat twice.
Yep.
I sent it, hey, can you make me a G-code program? This is the tool I have, this is the stock, and this is the machine that I'm using. And it came back to me, what kind of part are you trying to make?
Wow.
First off, I'd love to make you a program, but you got to tell me what you want to make.
Yep.
And I was like, make me, and my second dialogue to ChatGPT, I was like, I want to make a shot glass.
Yep.
The the outer diameter 1 inch. So like you don't have to mill anything from the outside.
Sure.
The inner diameter of the shot glass, I think I said 0.85 inches.
Right.
A depth of 1.75 inches. So that's how deep the glass is.
Yep.
The whole height of the shot glass from the 1 inch Delrin bar stock will be 2 inches.
Yep.
And I'd like all sharp edges chamfered.
Okay.
Did I say chamfered or filleted? I think I want chamfered. Yeah.
Sure.
I didn't tell it that yet.
Okay.
But I want them chamfered.
Yep.
In iterations to come. I just wanted to see what the first cut would.
Right.
And I was thinking, because the first time that I messaged Chat about this, it was like, it sent me a list of questions.
Okay.
And the whole idea with ChatGPT is you're programming AI through a conversational facade, a conversational platform. That's the most advanced thing about ChatGPT and OpenAI's AI platform.
Yep.
OpenAI didn't beat AI to the market.
Sure.
They beat the market, or they beat the rest of the market in that they made AI programming conversational.
Yeah.
3D printing wasn't the first technology to make 3D parts.
Sure.
Parts in 3 dimensions. they were the first, or their disruptive technique was that they made it easier. They made the CAM part a lot easier than what CAM is with CNC milling, which is why I'm doing this. So ChatGPT, I was expecting to get some questions back. Second iteration or second dialogue, it sends me a G-code program.
Oh, wow.
And so that's where the article pretty much ends. Part one of my article. Anybody that knows, any machinist or anybody in manufacturing can look at the G-code and say that, oh, that's real G-code, but something's wrong here. This probably isn't going to work. Sure enough, now here's the spoilers. Threw it in a simulation. As soon as I got it without looking at it, I didn't worry about this because it's not like I'm putting it on the machine right away. Nobody in their right mind would do that. Immediately put, I guess so. But I immediately uploaded it into a free simulator, ncviewer.com, made by our boy Xander Luciano. That's like his magnum opus, was making a free, what's the other term for free? Open source. An open source website. Anybody can use it. They're not collecting any data from you. Strictly, his goal was to make CAM simulation accessible. Uploaded the program on NC Viewer. Nothing happens. I see it go line by line. It reads each line. In the 3D model, though, the visualization,
nothing happens.
Nothing.
Oh, man.
No tool, no spindle movement, no tool path, nothing. So I'm like, okay, so the next step is going to be like, hey, chat, I hate to break it to you, and it pains me to say it, but your code didn't work. And I'll also say this, but when I say that it's kind of noticeable, looking at other G-code programs that we've run in the past, G-code is quite literally G codes and M codes. But almost every line of your G-code program usually starts with a N code.
Sure.
I don't know if it's actually called an N code, but there's at the beginning of each line there is the letter N, and then a number after it. Usually it starts with 0, and each line of your G-code program is usually on average 5 different from the. So the first one will be 0, the next one will be 5, 10, 15, 20. It's not always 5, but it's usually about that much difference. And so I'm in the next time I reach out to chat, I'm just going to be like, hey, I think we're missing N codes. Maybe this is why it didn't work. Look into this for me. Figure out what that means.
That's going to be awesome.
It's going to be a learning experience. The AI is helping me learn.
Steve, let's get into some articles.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first one I have is about, we published an article on the Hype Cycle for Robotics. And this is based off Gartner's Artificial Intelligence Hype Cycle. So the Hype Cycle covers 4 categories of areas where technology is being developed. I want to go over these areas because I think it is important and maybe start using these terms in the future because as new technologies come out, for example, blockchain, right? That was a big one that went through a very interesting hype cycle. So the categories that we have are innovation trigger, peak of inflated expectations, trough of disillusionment, slope of enlightenment,
that's right, dude.
Plateau productivity. And it kind of talks about things will drop off here and there as they go through this hype cycle. So something could start off with innovation trigger, but then drop off shortly after the inflated expectation. So some of the definitions they have here for inflated for the different categories. So innovation trigger, that's where the technology breakthrough kicks off. This is an idea. They have a concept. They have an idea, early proof of concept stories.
Right.
Then we get to the peak of inflated expectations. So someone sees this idea and projects what they think will happen. So their early stories about this technology may not apply to everyone. The trough of disillusionment, that's where things start to wane a little bit as experiments and implementations start to fail. So they're starting to hit the rev limiter, let's say. Then if they're able to get past that, then it gets into the slope of enlightenment. So they see their failures, they're able to modify. And if they're able to push through that, then they get it into the plateau productivity. And that's where they start becoming mainstream, or we would call industrial grade. Where they're able to meet the needs of a broader industry. And I like the entire article because it goes through quite a bit. There's one key section that I want to hit on that Andra talks about, and it mentions cobots are still in the trough of disillusionment, according to that chart.
Oh, cobots for sure.
And in the conversation that were occurring on a lot of the automation groups, a lot of people are focusing on the term cobot as opposed to collaborative operation.
Yeah.
And I think that's taking a step back where people are pushing more towards let's get a technology as opposed to let's get a solution. And it's a little bit hacky to say that in manufacturing, but
it is.
What that allows you to do is allow the integrators, allow the experts to say, what are you trying to do? If a human's involved, we can have other solutions besides a cobot to help make it safe.
Right.
And I think that's
if it's safety, you don't need a new type of robot to be for it to be a safe robot.
Yeah. And that was the big takeaway and connected to the conversations at the Joint Technology Summit because our automation expert talked through a lot of those scenarios that people are asking for cobots or asking for specific robots where, the end user knows a fair amount and they know what problem they're trying to solve, but the connectivity to technology, there's a little bit of a gap there. And I thought that was very interesting point in the article that Andra brought up. So go to AMT Online and you'll be able to read more about that.
It's a great article. And it's what's funny is Andra was the first person that, for lack of a better term or better way to say it, was the first person that ever spoke ill of cobots to me.
Right.
She wasn't negative. She was just like, cobots are a little overhyped, just so you know. like everybody thinks that cobots are just safe robots. And no, if they were safe robots, we would call them something else. We'd call them safe bots.
Yeah.
Or the point is collaborative. And while the standards are still growing, they might still be growing. They were growing at the time. Just because it's force limited to 15 newtons doesn't mean it's going to be safe.
Yeah.
You can still because if a car hits you with 15 newtons of force, it's going to be a safe collision.
Right.
Nothing's going to happen. Because 15 newtons is not a lot.
Yep.
If a cobot is holding a very, very sharp knife and hits you with 15 newtons, you're going to bleed out.
That's exactly the scenario that our expert talked through is that you have to include the end of arm tooling, the environment, what it's picking up.
Yeah.
So if it's picking up a feather, everyone's going to joke, that's collaborative. But to your point, as soon as it picks up that knife.
Hitting you with 15 newtons of force with a feather, that feather's moving.
And that's where I think the industry is headed towards the conversation of the entire package of let's include the part. If you're picking up a thin sheet metal and just flailing it around, that's not safe.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But I actually put a article in the Tech Report this week.
Yep.
Talking about the misconceptions of safety in cobots.
Exactly.
And
good.
I put that in industry news before it went in the Tech Report, and Andra was like, "I love this. Yes, this is absolutely right." I was like, "Go figure." So, but going back to the Gartner Hype Cycle, I like to think of the Gartner Hype Cycles as industry analogous or the analogous industry equivalent of industry analogous to the Shakespearean climax.
Oh, sure.
It's just the story of a new technology,
exactly.
how it goes.
Yep. Steve, tell me about G-Code articles.
Dude, so because I was talking about G-Code and ChatGPT earlier, and because this is not a production facility, we're an organization. We're not making parts. We're not trying to make our money by making parts.
Right.
We're making our money doing a lot of other fun things. Sometimes when I'm lucky and things go right, it's also making parts. But we don't sell those parts for profit, at least. Xometry, one of the cool companies in tech as of the past few years, came out with a great article recently called G-Code, Definition, Function, and Different Types.
Nice.
And I said all that part in the beginning about, we don't make parts that often. We don't make parts for profit. To basically say that, sometimes it goes a few months before I touch between working with the Pocket NC.
Right.
I'll make it, I made a shot glass for Mo last year.
Sure.
And I wanted to keep that going, and I haven't turned the Pocket NC on since then. And it's is it April?
April.
Might have to cut this part. when it goes when somebody goes that long, It's like the whole concept of like, speaking a foreign language. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yep.
G-code's the same way, and G-code's a language. And when I go this long without using our CNC machine, sometimes I have to like dust myself off a little bit.
Yep.
This article was amazing.
Nice.
And so I wanted to put that point of use, that my use case in there, because I think a lot of people would look at an article like this and be like, this is so low level.
Sure.
Like, this has been done before, right? Like there's like 50 versions of the machinist's handbook that tell you all of this. But it's like sometimes you don't need an entire PhD education process to just answer a few questions about G-code. Right. Sometimes you need a little refresher.
Yep.
And I don't think it matters on like, generations. Like if it's a millennial such as myself, or a student in elementary school that needs to pick up G-code, or some dusty old boomer that hasn't looked at a CNC or even stood next to a CNC machine in the past 30 years. I think this can help everybody. And I think I really enjoyed this article for that.
That's good. And
you can pick up your stupid book if you want. Like, it's not stupid. It's a great book.
It's a great book. It's the physical side of the book. We were chatting about this in prep, is that the shift from, to digital books, it's kind of interesting, and how information is consumed nowadays. It's very interesting. So being able to go to a page quickly, and just breeze through. So even myself as a manufacturing engineer, it could be a couple of months before I actually get back onto a mill and run some parts. So being able to quickly brush up on some G-code and then experiment my way the next day, that's definitely beneficial.
It's this sends me back into like a dark memory of when I was showing off to Doug and Tim. Yeah. When I was making that watch dial out of brass, out of like genuine brass. That's foreshadowing. I was having the toughest time milling brass because it kept getting gummy and gross and nasty. Yep. And I'm like, I get it. Like, brass wants to be milled around like 30,000 RPM spindle speed. Yep. And the max we got is 10. Yep. So we're running it at max spindle speed. Brass wants to be milled at 30,000. So we only have a third of that, meaning we need to cut back the feed rate by a third. Sure. Or maybe triple the feed rate, which is a concept that works in manufacturing, but like with my common sense totally fights it. And I'm like, I'm not about to. This means I'm gonna have to machine at night while everybody's at home, because like, this is gonna make noise. Yep. But anyway, I was showing my triumph to like Tim and Doug that I finally milled a nice brass watch dial on the Pocket NC. And I was explaining, all of the efforts that I went through with not getting it gummy to gum up. And Tim and Doug were like totally non-appreciative of it at all. And they were like, man, it's almost like, if only somebody could have put this in a handbook or a book for you so you could have figured this out. And I wanted to just take both of their heads and crack them together, because like, hey, ding-dongs, brass is not in the machinist's handbook. It's not. Open it up right now. Machining brass is, which is brass that's alloyed with lead to keep it from gumming up. Correct. Regular brass is not in there.
And it is difficult to machine.
We're going to fight. It is really tough to machine. Like like I said, you got to your spindle needs to be cooking.
Yep. You done, Steve?
I'm done.
Okay, good. Steve, I think we're running a little bit low on time. How about we save the last two articles for our next time?
Okay. Wait, really? I screwed up?
Okay. No. We're doing good. We just have, unfortunately, it's kind of busy now because we got MFG next week, so I got a couple of calls.
Fair enough. Oh, yeah. I actually have a call, too.
Steve, where can people find more info about us?
amtonline.org/resources. Like, share, subscribe.
Bye, everyone.
Bing bong.